think you're absolutely right with Cameron on the data convergence. I mean, there's no denying that that is where everything is going. And not just on the data convergence, but on what that means, the insights of data convergence. I mean, there's business intelligence organizations. They're the ones that are going to probably get the most headway in terms of figuring out where all the data fits. I don't mind that. Research today is not really equipped well to do that just because there's so damn much data. I mean, we're talking about terabytes of information. So we'll let IBM tackle that one. But what does it mean? That is still going to be our purview, and that is still going to be the critical opportunity for us. And I think you're right, looking at anthropology, the social sciences, those are the right models to be looking at. And that's also going to require a different human capital strategy for research companies as well. We've traditionally hired lots of statisticians and folks that are very math-oriented and project-oriented, and because that served the needs of the business model at that point. As we move into more ethnographic, more broad-based approaches, then we're going to have to find more creative thinkers, more business strategists, more folks that can think outside the box and can connect dots and utilize intuition in a structured way.
Brilliant.
You like all those connected dots?
I like the thanks very much. I think we've got plenty of stuff there. Paul, as a...
that was great. I did have a couple of questions actually, then, if you've got the time. One was just in terms of we talked a lot about kind of commoditization and the increase in just sheer quantity of data, but less perhaps about kind of how you identify quality, and also where clients are kind of how they're feeling about this huge explosion in quantity and how they actually are able to filter that. I just wondered if you had any views on it.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really good point, Paul, because there is so much data and there's not a lot of clarity on what it means, on how to utilize it effectively to drive strategy. That's where I think the kind of position of research today is that we are that filter. And maybe for the next few years, that may be the strongest play for us to make, really, is, you know what, there's a ton of data. We're going to help you look at that data, and we're going to help you figure out what that means. But at the end of the day, we still need to answer some very specific business questions and address very specific business objectives. So that is the proper role of a more targeted research approach, I think. Having an ongoing dialogue and ongoing data mining and going through that whole process of having kind of this open channel of 24/7 information coming in via MROCs and social media and blah, blah, blah. That's all really useful and powerful. But we still have to sometimes get down into the nitty-gritty and understand that if consumers are presented with this choice, then what will their decision be, and then why did they make that choice? And that is absolutely still what research does better than anybody else does. So does that answer your question?
That does. I think that filter thing is a sort of crucial sort of aspect to it, whether you're filtering or aggregating or, however you want to say it. I mean, it's like, Paul, we had that situation, we did that client seminar in the autumn time last year, and the audience, Lenny, were just, there's 60, 70 clients or whatever, basically just saying, there's just so much of this stuff. We need you guys to help us. We need you to help us sort of understand what matters and what doesn't. And I think there's an admission, if you talk to client-side buyers, there is an admission that the more overwhelming that feels, the more likely they are to revert to type. And they need help to realise that the other parts of the toolkit can help alleviate some of these problems and this kind of overwhelming feelings, if you like, of data overload. And I think that's for me, that's the way to chip away at this kind of reverting to type of saying, I've got a quant survey that looks like this, I don't understand head and tail of it, I'll do another one that looks like that, when they're actually sitting on something by doing a bit of qual on top that would have given the answer, or whatever it might be. And they just need help with that filtering. Then that's what they're struggling with, because they've never known so much information kicking around. And this other thing about this thing that we talk about a lot, Paul, don't we? This thing about research buyers, it's a Cinderella effect, Lenny. They don't often get to go at the ball, and we've got to help them get there. We've got to give them opportunities to shine. I mean, as you said it, they're often middle management, and they're often middle management for a reason. That isn't necessarily how bright they are, but just how we help them to elevate themselves within an organisation.
Right. Yeah. In any other service organization, our role is make our clients look good. Yeah. And if we're not doing that, then we don't deserve success. I mean, it's really just that simple. I was actually at a conference about 2 years ago. Martin Lindstrom was presenting. And Martin is quite the character, but he asked the question, it was, what do you sell? And his idea was around, brands, and during the conversation around all of that, what we agreed on is that ultimately what research sells is the opportunity for success. That is our job. Our job is to give to take information, make it meaningful, make it strategic, understand implications, understand outcomes, and although we certainly can't guarantee success, but to give them the opportunity to be successful. And I think that's what Stan is always talking about, Stan from Coke. Yeah. When he talks about pay for performance, step up, let's have some skin in the game. If we want to be treated like vendors, if we want to have that type of security of, okay, we're going to be in the cattle call and we're going to bid for, to do 1,000 surveys and whatever. Yeah. Okay, so be it. Then we will remain commoditized. We won't have a seat at the table. Our clients will remain not perceived with as much respect as they deserve. We have to step up our game if we want to change that model.
Cool. Did you have another question, Paul, or was that it?
My final thought was really, I think there is a question in here somewhere. It's the idea really, I think it's interesting that we're talking a lot more about intuition and less about absolute science of research now, and I think kind of there is a movement now that's moving away from the kind of absolute science aspect and does feel more about intuition and about being well versed and having a commercial head on and being a business person, as you described, Lenny. I guess it's kind of one of the issues I think we face in industry is also how we become great communicators, because it's going to be very embedded in those individuals, and that intuition being compelling and credible and clearly communicated in a way that clients can have faith and trust in. I just wondered again whether that was a challenge you kind of saw as well.
I think it is. If you look at let's look at the consulting organizations. I mean, certainly they have a process they follow. But a consultant is primarily in that role due to their experience, their ability to think strategically, their insight, and their intuition. I mean, those are kind of the key attributes of an effective consultant. So I think that we do need to train and recruit our own staffs in order to have some of those skills. The ability to think creatively and to solve problems is really the core of what any effective business person does. Certainly other skill sets are leveraged in different ways. There's a need for all of it. Not everybody is going to be a kind of a thought leader or consultant type of person. The world would be pretty crazy if that was the case. But in our business, with our account leads, with the main folks that are actually engaging with clients, the more the research director role, I think that does need to shift into a different type of thinking and a different type of experience in order to be really effective there. And look, I rarely look at data. I hate it. Show me a set of crosstabs, my eyes cross. It's just, my God. I'm one of those people that I look at enough data to understand kind of what the major selling points are, and most of what I do comes through intuition, comes through connecting the dots. So I seem to have been successful to an extent from doing that could be an outlier, or I may be about to jump off a cliff. I don't know. But I think that I can only look at my own experience and think that must be appropriate and important in some circumstances to be able to achieve success. And I have to believe that that's also kind of a critical paradigm for the market research organizations to embrace as well. Not that everybody needs to be like Lenny. Far be it. I'm not that arrogant about
one interesting part, I'll make a comment on, and then we'll try and sort of wrap this up. But I mean, one interesting part, and I don't know, let me ramble slightly, but I've always, there's been a situation in the UK, and from my experience of working with US agencies as well, I think it does translate to some extent, is that the qualitative guys have always been the creative ones, and they've always been deemed to be the creative ones and the thinking ones, and they've probably always been, to some extent, deemed to be the best communicators as well. And interesting things happening with the qualies here in the UK, I think, is that they are realising that they need to open themselves up to doing different things and actually touching and joining up different dots as well. A good example of that would be that I think only a couple of years ago, really, you talk to I don't like to put people in baskets, but a traditional quali a couple of years ago, they would have just said to you that anything online around qual is just a waste of space. It's not as good as the real thing face to face, etc.
Right.
They are now really beginning, I feel, and this, we've got some notable figures here in the UK who are known for being, traditional qualies, etc. from the conference circuit. They are changing their tune, and they are realising that they have got an opportunity to do a lot more. And I think them opening themselves up to other, I'm sounding like a quantity because I come from a slightly more quantity background, but they are opening themselves up to the industry in a different way than they were. And I think there's more of an embracing situation going on, facilitated by people like Paul, actually, Lenny on the line, who's, kind of, I'm neither nor, and I've got skill sets in both camps, blah, blah, blah. And I think this kind of coming together is going to be really helpful, and it goes back to Stan the Man again. He says, talk about the human condition. Now, traditional qualities will say you couldn't get the human condition online. Well, that's absolute tripe, frankly, because there's lots of examples kicking around of where people are doing really great stuff that you would never have got it through the sort of traditional focus group, one-to-one depth interview technique. And I think this is, we're talking a lot about that data end, but I think this convergence of some of these, and you mentioned it yourself up front, Lenny, the convergence to some of these qualitative aspects are fascinating for me, and I think the days of somebody calling themselves a quali or a quanti or whatever, they need to be careful with that,
Preach to the choir, my friend. Totally agree with you. I think online qualitative is probably about where online quantitative was around 2006, 2007. Growing rapidly, not quite eclipsing the techniques, but another year or two, I think so. There will always be need for traditional focus groups or that individual piece. But people live their lives online now. That is, you don't get more ethnographic, really, than doing these online techniques. It's, your life is lived out there in front of everybody through a variety of devices in a variety of ways, and there's so many ways that you engage. So, that is certainly a rich area for people with more of that qualitative mindset, I guess. Qualitative training.
You have a bit of a qualitative bent, which somebody like Paul on the line does have as well. So, excellent, Lenny. Thank you for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the line, and we do hope to continue our musings and conversations and discussions at another point. Thank you very much.
No, I do as well. Thank you, guys. This has been a lot of